And hello, everyone. It's time for another edition of MLB This Week. It's the MLB This Week show. My name is Rich.
And I'm Gary.
Welcome back, Gary, to another edition of MLB This Week. And we have a whole lot of stuff going on around the baseball world and a whole lot to talk about this week in the wonderful world of baseball. We're going to lead it off with one of the top stories in the last week or so. The Pecota ratings have been released, and I don't know if you've ever followed some of the baseball prospectus books, Gary, but they release about a phone book size book every year, or a couple of them, and this is one of them. They kind of rate every player that is in Major League Baseball with their batting and pitching skills.
Well, Rich, haven't had a chance to look at that, but I don't, it's all speculation, I guess, and what they think they're going to do, and I guess the proof will be in the pudding whether or not they come through, but we'll have to see. It's an interesting thing, and of course now we're getting close to spring training, so all of us baseball fans are looking for something.
Yeah, there's a big buzz building up all of a sudden on Twitter. A lot more people talking about baseball, and of course, one of the big stories, of course, as we're talking about right now, is the Pecota ratings. And what I thought about doing first, for all the listeners that may not have heard of that, Pecota is actually an acronym for Player Empirical Comparison and Optimization Test Algorithm. So that's a mouthful there. Basically,
it is.
Basically, it's a sabermetric system for forecasting Major League Baseball player performance. So what they do is feed all the statistics that a player has done on previous seasons, and they sort of come up with a computer program to predict, so to speak, how those individual players will play for the upcoming season. And some of the predictions are pretty interesting, and they even follow that into how a whole team will perform over the course of a year. And every year they release their ratings, and of course baseballprospectus.com is where you would go to check out the most current depth charts. They actually update it quite a bit, and within the last couple days they updated a few of the teams. I know the Phillies I've been watching, they initially picked them to only have 69 wins for the 2015 season, but looks like with a new pitching prospect in Chad Billingsley they picked up, they gave him an extra win. So they are now predicting 70 wins for the Phillies to be one of the worst teams in baseball for 2015. So a lot of interesting projections made by this Pecota ratings.
I'm still not sure if I'm sold on all this sabermetric stuff, though. I'm just so old school when it comes to that kind of stuff, and don't know if I buy the projections and everything. You still have to go out there and play the games, and anything can happen, as you well know. I know they get pretty close. So I guess that you have to, look at something. They have all these algorithms, as you say, and stuff that they put into play. But what did they put the Mets at, Rich, while we're talking about that?
I'm trying to bring a screen up here to show you visually on our podcast that we do online. Of course, for some reason, some devils are in the details with this, and usually it doesn't work for me. So one of the surprise teams, actually, Gary, now that you mention it, was the New York Mets. They actually have them finishing second in the NL East with 82 wins and 80 losses. So big surprise there. The New York Mets predicted to do very well in the NL East League standings this year from the Pecota ratings.
Well, that's certainly good news. I'd like to pick them a little higher, win total wise, but I think they will finish second ahead of the Marlins. That would be my early pick, and behind the Nationals. But again, it's an interesting thing, and it gets into a lot of complicated numbers and stuff. So I don't know. Sometimes I just think I was never good at math. So
Right. Well, supposedly the computers take over all the math on this, and they have a team that played terribly last year, and with all the algorithms that they use, with all the new players that they've picked up in the off season, they have the Boston Red Sox finishing first in the AL East with 87 wins. And like you said, Gary, I don't know if you can put a whole lot of faith in some of these numbers, but year after year, I think the majority of teams that do well, this sort of computer program can pick up on, and they've been very successful at picking league leaders and division winners, things like that. No surprise in the Central, they're picking the Detroit Tigers by a slim margin, but Cleveland Indians are projected to do pretty well too. They have them in second place in the AL East, or AL Central, I'm sorry.
And even with all the moves that the White Sox have made, that's a little bit surprising that they have those two teams ahead of them. But how does the AL West look?
Out west, they have the Angels again, sort of running away with that, with 90 wins projected, 72 losses. Of course, Mike Trout and the gang, they're the team to beat out there in the West, and Oakland Athletics have dropped down a bit. They're in third place predictions, and the Seattle Mariners are in second place with 87 wins. So they're projecting the Mariners to do fairly well this year.
Yeah, well, they made a lot of changes as well in the off season, and they're going to be in the hunt for that title. But as you say, California is probably the class of that division.
Yeah, and rounding out the Pecota picks here, National League East, of course, they picked the Nationals. They've really bolstered their starting pitching. They have them at 92 wins. In the NL Central, National League Central, it's the St. Louis Cardinals again, but the big surprise pick moving up, and they have Cubs people talking, they have the Chicago Cubs finishing in second place in the NL Central.
Cubs made a lot of moves, signing Lester and some trades. They got some good young players. I think it might be a little too soon for that, but again, we'll see. If the computer wins out over regular ideas of what should be going on. Surprised that the Pirates aren't higher than that, and they still have a good, solid team. Made some improvements. They lost Russell Martin, but did make some other moves, so they're still going to be somebody to watch. And how about out west in the NL?
Out west, still the Dodgers leading the way. They have them at almost 97 wins on the season, so they really project the Dodgers to do well again in 2015. Behind them, the San Francisco Giants. So it looks like it's going to be another interesting race between the Dodgers and the Giants out there in 2015.
And San Diego, they really improved themselves a lot, so they're going to be in that hunt too.
Yeah, San Diego projected to do third place so far. And like I said, you can go over to baseballprospectus.com. They update it every once in a while. I imagine as spring training starts, and more players are hitting the fields, these numbers do update themselves. So check it out. It's a lot of fun to see how your team is projected to finish. And of course, like you said, Gary, don't put all your faith in it, because it's just a computer program. But 8 times out of 10, it seems like it gets a lot of this stuff right.
But we know well that computers can have glitches. So.
Yes, especially here on Google Hangouts when we do our video podcast.
That's for sure.
Well, you have your story first up here on Mr. Derek Jeter.
Well, last year we had the Derek Jeter retirement tour, and this will be the first spring training in a number of 20 years or so that he hasn't been. But he's already making a transition. He became an internet entrepreneur, and he always said he wanted to be an owner of a professional sports team. Well, the story came out that he was interested in buying the Buffalo Bills when the team was up for sale in 2014. The sources have said that while playing his farewell season, he explored purchasing the Bills when they were up for sale. Now, I don't think he could have done this on his own. I don't think any player's got that kind of money to do it on his own, except for maybe Michael Jordan. Usually they have to be part of a consortium. Magic Johnson, of course, is with the Dodgers, and it's been done at Mario Lemieux with the Pittsburgh Penguins, but Derek Jeter interested in becoming an NFL owner and actually investigated buying the Buffalo Bills. So interesting as people, he would have been a king up there in Buffalo, with his name, and all you got to do is keep the team there. He would have been great, but the deal fell through. He really didn't have the money, I guess. And Derek Jeter, though, is looking for other things to purchase in his retirement. Maybe he'd like to sponsor this show.
Yeah, that would be awesome of him to do that. And yeah, I didn't even hear any of that. So that's interesting news. Wonder why the Buffalo Bills? Did it come out why he wanted to purchase the Bills, or is it just that he wants to grab onto something and they were available? Do you have the story behind that, possibly?
No, I think it's probably as you say. He wanted to be an owner, and they were available. They were up for sale this postseason and last season, and it's in New York. Even though it's way up in the other end of New York, it's still New York, and technically, as I like to point out, it is the only football team in New York. Needless to say that the New York Jets and the New York Giants both play and practice, for the most part, in New Jersey. So Buffalo Bills are really the only true New York State football team.
Yeah, that's true. Never thought of it that way. And I always thought the Jets and the Giants were going to get that stadium up there in New York. There was plenty of talk about it, but maybe it's still on the planning board somewhere.
I'm sure it's on a planning board, but it doesn't. I mean, they just built the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, and they signed a long contract, the Jets did, to share it with the Giants. So no time soon will there be football here in New York City.
It's amazing. Well,
it is.
Yeah. Well, Derek Jeter looking to grab onto a piece of the pie, and we'd like to offer our listeners a piece of the pie here now. We have a buddied up with a partnership with a website called Patreon, and what they offer to do is have the listeners become a patron of the show. Just go to Patreon, that's patreon.com/MLBThisWeek / that is. And you can check out where you can become a monthly sponsor of the show and become a patron of the show. Just by starting with up to $1 a month, you can support our show, almost like public television or public radio. A small monthly donation helps us keep some of the bills paid and show expenses and other things we hope to bring you more of. So maybe even Gary could get a new hat, or maybe one for me. So if you have a business, you can get your business mentioned on the podcast as well, starting at only a $10 a month donation. So if you have a business or service out there, we'd love to have you sponsor MLB This Week. So check it out. It's at patreon.com/MLBThisWeek. I'll have a link in the show notes as well at MLBThisWeek.com.
And everybody should do it. And Rich, you got a story about a Hall of Famer visiting? Well, he got elected to the Hall of Fame, so he is a Hall of Famer. Hasn't been gotten in yet. That'll be this summer, but a visit to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, unbelievably, Craig Biggio has never visited Cooperstown up until the last 10 days or so. Back on January 30th, he and his wife took a private tour of the Hall of Fame. Of course, he'll be visiting there later in the summer, being elected in 2015 to the Hall of Fame. And he said, quote, "I was just a little kid from Long Island. I loved to play football and baseball. I loved every minute of it. And now I'm sitting in a chair that says Hall of Fame. It's crazy. It's really surreal." So Biggio got a peek at his Hall of Fame plaque, and he got a private tour arranged by the Hall of Fame, and he really, really enjoyed it. He looked at all of the great memorabilia, including his own, that he'll see later this summer. He has a Astros jersey there that he wore on opening day in 2003 with a patch on it. It was honoring the Space Shuttle Columbia astronauts who died on February 2nd, 2003. So, it was like a walk through time for him. And, of course, he also visited all the other displays. So Biggio, the only player in baseball history with at least 3,000 hits, 600 doubles, 400 stolen bases, and 250 home runs. So after narrowly missing the Hall of Fame the previous year, he finally got in this year. So he was very ecstatic and very happy with his tour of the Hall of Fame.
And I guess that's the way to go, right? if you're gonna get in, you hope you get in elected like that and get a private tour and everything. It's got to be a great honor, and good luck to him, and enjoy it. Enjoy all the visits and stuff, because you've earned it. You work hard, and no, I don't think he should necessarily been in. He's in, and he's got that HOF he can write after every autograph from now on.
Yeah, that's a big plus for a player. They'll have that the rest of their life. And, of course, as we've said on previous editions of MLB This Week, if you've never been to the Hall of Fame, try to make a trip there. It's a really great little town. It's almost like a walk back into time. Some of the old stores that they have full of baseball memorabilia, and it's just a really nice town to visit. Walk through the Hall of Fame, enjoy the exhibits that they have there, right up in upstate New York. So, never been there, I wholeheartedly recommend going.
Yeah, it certainly is a great place to go and visit. And there's a couple other fine museums as well up in that area, if not right outside of town there. So it's a great place, and I know it's tough in the winter, but summertime is usually packed. So if you can go probably in the winter, it's a better time to go. But they're up north, and with that cold and snow, you just never know.
Yeah, try to make it in the springtime. Probably May probably is your safest time around that part of the country. But we want to thank all our listeners for listening to us here at MLB This Week, the MLB This Week show. You can also listen to us at iTunes, the music store there. We're in the podcast section, of course, and on Stitcher Radio. We're also at MLBThisWeek.com, Podomatic.com, and also you can find us just about anywhere. So take us on the road, give us a listen if you can't watch us live. And Gary, also we have a great Twitter handle at MLB This Week. So if you ever want to follow us there on Twitter, we usually release our show times when we're doing the shows and a lot of other great notes. So check us out. Follow us on Twitter.
Yeah, we're all over the place, Rich.
Yep. So Lakewood, New Jersey is a big town for minor league baseball. But you have the next story about a rock star that's going to partner up with Lakewood.
Well, Rich, minor league baseball is really the forefront for a lot of promotions and just a lot of things they try out on that level, and it's really been a growth spurt the last few years for minor league baseball. But the Lakewood Blue Claws are continuing a popular promotion. This will be the 8th year in a row that the Phillies Class A affiliate changed their name to the Bruce Claws for a night on July 25th, and they'll be they do all kinds of different Springsteen-related activities in that night, and they do contests and stuff that have themes to the songs and that sort of thing. But it's just the concept that they're able to do something like that, and reminiscent of the Brooklyn Cyclones this past season, who did a Seinfeld night, which was written about in a couple of national newspapers because of its uniqueness and the difference. So really it's a story about Lakewood, but it's really a story about minor league baseball and what they attempt to do to try to get the crowds in, and some of the initiative that they take, and what they have to try to get and what they have to do to try to get people in. It's just pretty amazing, and a lot of it comes from young people starting out in the sport and getting their start in professional baseball is not only on the field but also in the front office and stuff, and just a very interesting thing. I've really gotten into a lot of minor league baseball in the last couple of years, and I've just been amazed by it, and really impressed with the people that work there.
Yeah, it's almost like a throwback in time. They don't have the big stars that attract fans that just clamor over buying tickets to see them, so they have to be a little more inventive, like even your local minor league team last year had a great Seinfeld promotion. So yeah, it's awesome the way the minor leagues reach into the design of having fun to attract fans to see baseball as well.
And as you say, they don't have the superstars because the teams are literally at that level are changing every year. That the entire team changes for the most part as they bring up guys from a lower level up to this level to get their experience, and then they're off, hopefully for them, up to the next level the next season. So it kind of puts them in a bind, and what they have to sell is their name, and as you say, fun. They have to sell fun, that it's a fun experience, and they have to keep it affordable so they can get families in, and that's how we've discussed this a couple of weeks ago about the costs of baseball in general on a major league level, and yet the minor leagues are somewhat successful, or in some cases very successful, because they are selling a different kind of product, and they are reasonably priced, and they're fun. They're fun to go to, and I think that sometimes you see a little bit on the major league as they're getting into like the sausage races and the president's races in Washington. And they're starting to they're realizing they got to bring in some of that stuff, because to keep people busy and to keep them having fun at the ballpark, they still have to do something about the prices. They're just too high.
Exactly, and we're going to be talking about that a lot more on future upcoming editions of MLB This Week. And we're going to be talking about some of the rule changes that they're trying to speed up baseball. There was mention of pitching clock and things like that, and we're going to be talking a lot about that because, baseball as it is, like you said, you're paying a lot of money to go to a major league game. Why did they want to rush it any more than it's being played out now. So we'll have to talk more about that. That's an interesting topic that you bring up there, Gary. And as you said, take in a major or a minor league game this year if you can, because it is a totally different feel to it. It's more hometown. Every minor league team has its own little way of entertaining the fans, and it's usually a lot of fun, and it's a cheap day. You probably spend a tenth of what you would pay at a major league ballpark, and that's what I think I'm going to do this year. I'm going to take in more minor league games than I have in the past, and leave the majors for just an occasional game here or there.
Yeah, I'll watch the majors on television because you can, but I'll go to the minors because it's more affordable, it's fun, as I said, and see the stars before they're stars. you know, get their autographs now, and hopefully you put them in a safe place, and they'll become stars, and you'll have their autographs from way back when they were just starting out. So it's a great thing.
And this is a perfect time to give Gary a plug for his minor league podcast that will be starting up when the minor leagues start up. News and opinions on the Brooklyn Cyclones of the New York Penn League. It's called Cyclones Fevercast. So that's our own Gary Mack's other podcast that he does besides Mets Musings, which you can check out at Baseball Talk Radio. A whole lineup of shows there. A couple minor league podcasts there. There's one, Foul Balls, that talks a lot about the Phillies minor leagues and the majors. Plenty of baseball talk there, 24/7. Japanese baseball, New York Yankees. There's Marlins Minors with the 27 Outs podcast, a great voted #1 of the top podcasts covering MILB. They have a lot of player interviews and guests on, so check all the shows out over at baseballtalkradio.com. And now the new live feed, the radio feed, just in time for the startup of spring training. You can listen to entertaining talk just like this show on a 24/7 radio player right on the site, Gary.
And that's exciting to have that back on there, Rich. So go check it out, baseballpodcast.net and baseballtalkradio.com. Both the feeds are still good, and it's a great place to get all your baseball fix at. And, Rich, you've got a story about a pitcher who's living in a van. What's that all about?
Yeah, very interesting story. His name is Daniel Norris. He's 21 years old, and he's a pitching prospect for the Toronto Blue Jays. And he actually got a $2 million signing bonus. And he actually lives in a 1978 Westfalia Volkswagen van. He chronicles all of his travels on Twitter, where followers are given equal doses of his passion for baseball and his general wanderlust, as they call it. I'm looking at one picture here on Twitter where the guy's shaving with an axe, so he's definitely a unique character.
Out there.
But he actually nicknamed his van Shaggy, and it almost looks like that bust that was on the popular cartoon with Shaggy featured in it. But he'll tweet you pictures of how he's living, sleeping in a van. He'll drive out to California and through Canada and wherever he happens to be. It's just a very interesting type of person there.
He definitely seems like a character then. 1970, and it's probably one of them VW campers, and it's hard to find one that's in that good a shape that maybe he took that $2 million and renovated it a little bit, but it's an interesting story. Imagine if he makes it to the pros, what would happen? You know, we had a couple of guys in New York though that lived on a boat. Dave Kingman lived on a boat when he was here, and there was another player. I can't recall his name right off the top of my head, also lived in a houseboat or on a boat when they were both with the Mets. So it's been, we think they're in a nice house or in a nice apartment somewhere, but hey, whatever makes you comfortable.
Yeah, that's for sure. He tweeted out a picture overlooking the water. It said, "Dinner during the golden hour, 5-star restaurant." And there he was in this 1978 Volkswagen with a view of some nice body of water there and eating a meal, but he called it a 5-star restaurant. So very interesting. And yes, he will be taking the van down to Florida for spring training. He did tweet out in the middle of January, prepping Shaggy for the surf/road trip down to Florida for spring training. Man, time flies. So interesting to see what happens over the course of and especially if he makes the team.
Oh yeah, that'll be real interesting. Then he's gonna get to Toronto, right? Did you say he was with Toronto?
Yeah, he's with the Blue Jays, the Miners. So,
that'll be a long trip for Shaggy.
Yeah, if you want to follow him on Twitter, check him out. He's at Daniel Norris, Norris 18. So you could find out the trials and tribulations of Daniel Norris there as he makes his way around town in his van. And Gary, you have the next interesting story on This Week in Major League Baseball.
Well, it's sad news kind of for the Detroit Tigers, as we talked about them before with the Pecota ratings, in that for the second time in 4 years, Victor Martinez, their big hitter, along with Cabrera, has suffered a major knee injury during his off-season workouts. Doesn't appear to be as severe as the last one, but it'll put the start of his season in question. The Tigers announced last Thursday that Martinez has torn the medial meniscus in his left knee. He tore the cartilage during workouts in Florida and underwent an MRI and exam in Lakeland, Florida, where the extent of the injury became clear. Noted orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews performed the surgery, and the Tigers don't have a timetable yet, but usually it takes about 6 to 8 weeks, though the Phillies had Ryan Howard, their slugger, missed the second half of the 2013 season after suffering a similar injury in July of that year. So Victor Martinez, I guess if you're going to have an injury, now's the time to have it. And but he'll probably miss the start of the season now with this torn meniscus injury. And those of you out there that have had knee injuries know that sometimes it's not the easiest thing, though. Probably somebody that's not playing professional sport may recover quickly because they got to get back to work. So,
yeah, so
you don't have a chance.
He's probably one of the top stars so far to be missing out in 2015. And, of course, as spring training starts up soon, we'll have to see who else falls under the injury bug. That's unfortunately a part of sports. But hopefully your Mets will have a good year and stay injury-free this year, Gar.
Got my fingers crossed, Rich. Hopefully that's the case.
Yeah, they can maybe pull something together. You never know. In fact, the Pecota ratings, getting back to that from earlier in the show, they actually picked the Mets for a wild card. So I know that's probably encouraging news for you.
That's great news. That's what we want to hear. Hopefully they can take a wild card. They've got to show some definite progression this year, and I'm keeping, as I said, my fingers are crossed, and I'm hoping it'll help the show if they have a good year, I think. So.
Yes, it will. So we'll look forward to seeing what happens with that, and as we draw down to the last story here on MLB This Week, the MLB This Week show, there's a lot been said lately about baseball sort of dying out and losing its fans, things like that, Gary, but you only have to look at a few business publications to figure out some of the biggest sporting clubs in America are actually baseball teams, especially with these big contracts they're getting with television. Of course, the Yankees no longer the America's most valuable franchise, but baseball is not dying yet. A lot of comments over the years has said that it's going down. The fans aren't staying with it as much. People aren't as interested in it. But every time you turn the newspaper, you see these local teams like the Cubs waiting on a big television contract in the billions of dollars. The Phillies just signed one, and it just the more it seems like baseball is the naysayers, the better it's becoming, actually.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know they say the game's too long, and as you said, we'll be talking about that and things they want to do to speed the game up, but the money is still there. I mean, otherwise, how could they afford to be paying Max Scherzer these contracts and everything else? So it's not dying, folks. The money's still there. It's still the best sport going. And I don't think we're going to see anything anytime soon. And if the sport is dying, then why is it on certain levels more popular than ever? I mean, like, again, the minor leagues. How come they're thriving so much? And even on the major league level, we're not hearing about any teams that are contemplating moving or closing up business. So I don't know. I think just people sometimes write things because they have nothing to write about. And I mean, go check out your social media. Go check out the back page of any paper in any major sports town, and all you see is about baseball, especially now. So I don't buy it, and good for us. The Major League MLB network is thriving, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk with the football season ending. Probably a lot of our listeners checked out the Super Bowl as we did, and I didn't see a big comparison between the World Championship of football and the World Series. I think the World Series is a heck of a lot more interesting to watch. It's a game that's exciting. I've kind of found the Super Bowl to be a little boring, to be honest with you.
The thing is about the Super Bowl, Rich, is that they market it. It's one game. So they've marketed so well, and they've made almost like a national holiday out of it. And baseball can't do that because it's a 7-game series. I think baseball made a mistake when they started this. They used to do, for years there, they started the World Series on a Saturday. Game 1 was on a Saturday, and I think Game 7 would have been the following Sunday. And I think they should go back to that because it does start on the weekend, and it does give it that, if your team, if it makes Game 6, you have that opportunity to you're on a weekend, you can have people over. It's hard to do. You know what I mean? With, like I said, the Super Bowls, the date, that's the game, and you can make plans around it. Baseball, the World Series, it's hard to do that. But I think one mistake they made was moving that from the weekends to start it and the end of it, if it gets that far. I think they should go back to that, but we'll have to see. It's just that football's a different kind of sport where they could make that kind of setup, and it works great for them, and they did a great job of marketing. And unfortunately, baseball can't exactly do that because it's a series. But as you say, I think the World Series is and this past year, what an exciting series we had. It was just fantastic.
Yeah, it was just full of action and a lot of behind-the-story type of stuff, and it just no comparison in football to me, especially with some of the press day interviews. Some of these guys are trying to make a name for themselves, so they act stupid or whatever. It just doesn't
Well,
even.
they don't want to talk to the press, and you know they want their millions of dollars, but they don't want to talk to the press. So, you know, it's just but we're not football fans per se. I watch it, but you know, I guess football fans would argue with us.
That's true.
You know, the World Series drags out too long, but it is that drama sometimes that makes it what it is.
Yes, it is. And we want to thank you for listening to this week's edition of MLB This Week. You can check us out at our website, MLBThisWeek.com. We're an independent show, not sponsored by any baseball team or Major League Baseball. And Gary, we're going to be streaming on another network called MaxSportsChannels.com. They have a 24-hour feed there. Great lineup of shows, so we want to give them a shout out as well. MaxSportsChannels.com. Check out the great lineup of shows over there.
Yeah, very excited about that. Another outlet for us and our shows, and then it's going to be exciting to see where that goes.
Yes, it is. Well, thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you all next week for the start, just about the start of Spring Training 2015. We'll talk to you again next week. Everybody have a great one, and take care.